Hey there everyone, are you looking to incorporate text in your 3D modeling? Need to put a sign on a building? Well, good news for you is because today we'll be covering the introduction of how to add and manipulate text in the Blender. On today's episode of the Digital Paul Workshop, it is I, the typo that ruins your title, Techno Meow Tinkerer. Let's log on in. So we're going to cover some of the basic features of text right in this section. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight everything and hit delete. I'm going to hit Shift A and I'm going to select my text tool. As you can see, it lays it flat on the ground. It does not follow the Z axis, so you would have to come to the side and hit rotate if you want to do Z. In this case, I'm going to hit negative, so I have it standing straight up. So or R just for regular rotate. You can also hit S for your scale, and then G to grab. And so what the first thing I'm going to do here is going to go up to my top-down view. Now you can come up here and go to Object to Edit Mode, or you can hit Tab. I will let you know once you're in Edit Mode, your command keys such as G for grab does not work. So you're not going to be able to use a lot of your commands in this mode right here. So we're going to change this right quick to Digital Paul Workshop. Yep, shameless plug. And we're going to come over here. Well, I'm going to tab out. You don't have to tab in or out, but just so to keep from accidentally typing anything in here, I'm tabbing out to back to object mode. But I'm come to the right where it says this little A, that's for your data. Here you can give a name to your file, which changes this right here. As you can see, name. And then you get your shape. Zoom in here so we can see what we're doing. The resolution is going to be depending on how many pixels. Of course, the higher resolution, the more detail it's going to be. The lower it's going to be less. So get down here, the 2, the A. Kind of looks like the old Greek carvings you used to see on something like the Sherman and Peabody show types of stuff. 2, not quite so sharp of an edge, and 3 and 4 we're going to smooth out. The normal's 12 here. I have not found out what render used for yet, so we're not going to cover that. The texture space, I have not seen where this is useful for anything, so I'm going to move on. Now the offset deals almost like it's making it a bigger font. Now it's going to probably play, as you can see there, the R, how it's messing some stuff in the G, so it acts like it does a thickness, so you may have to work in even smaller increments. So I go down in the negatives, it thins it out. So that's something you may have to, depending on if you might need it for something like the thickness. Now the one you're probably going to use the most is the extrude. That's going to give you your depth of the letters. I don't know what these, I haven't found out what these are used for yet, but now the bevel, that's if you can get into, and let's get on down here so we can see. We'll find the A, let's do the I and the G. We'll switch over here, and then let's see. Now we can do that. We don't actually need the X-ray on. This should be able to show us. So we're going to have our bevel where we can go, don't want us to go down, let's go up. So you can see it's making it almost like a, well, it depends on how much of a bevel you do, is how much of a balloon-like character it's going to look like. We'll just keep it at 1 for right now. Of course, your resolution is going to deal with the number of number of edges on this. That's going to depending on how smooth it gets. So like if I add more, take away some. The object just flattens. I don't know what exactly that's for unless you push the selected to an object. I have to play around that. Now profile allows you to get in there and get some very unique shapes. So as you can see here, especially with the eye. Let me see if I can get to even the G. You see how it's kind of giving this curve, S-curve thing going on. So you can play around with this to really create some interesting effects and bevels. So especially if you want to do like some old wood carving, molding that you would see. Take that off. I don't need the bevels on anymore. Geometry, the font. Now here, you click here, you're gonna get your basic default font. But this folder over here, you click on, it'll let you pick from your Windows font folder. I'm gonna select Arial Bold because that's what I use pretty much for everything. Just because it's a nice, big, plain text that's readable. I don't use it for everything, but you do use it for a lot of stuff. Of course, you got your transform tool. This works similar to the size tool. When you, like if I click here in S, but if you look here, if I click here on this in S, I may size it here, but don't change that size number in this one over here. Now the shear tool, oops, don't want that small. The shear tool depends on which way your fonts are going to be slanted. So like in some of the old 90s stuff, if you keyframe, go and you got, yeah, you gotta play around you play around the keyframes here. Oh yeah, we got next one would be the font de curve, or text to curve I should say. I have not played with the curves that much, but here and there on some stuff I did use it for my tail. So I'm going to bring this here, size it up some, then I'm going to select my font, and right here underneath the font transform, it says text to curve. I'm going to click the eyedropper and then click the bezel curve. And as you can see, it follows the curvature of this. Now it's probably going to have to play around with it some to get it right, but at least that gives you an idea how, if you want your text to curve or follow a certain line pattern. We'll get in later on about emboss and engrave and some of the other stuff and later on in this video, but for right now we're just going over the basic controls. And no, I'm not going to worry about this anymore. I can go ahead and delete this. Okay, click back on here, bring my fonts back up, or that. Now paragraph, this is where you have your typical align left, center, right. For this one, it's not doing the justified correctly because justified would be trying to space this out a little bit more where it looks like trying to line these up in. But all this, including the vertical, is all, from what I can tell, based around where your origin point is. So you got your top, your bottom, your middle, your bottom baseline, and that's actually go back to open this thing back up the center. Let's do center because you can kind of see where a little bit better with the center, and of course the bottom, where it looks like it's going everywhere around the origin point. Character spacing, if I remember correctly from graphic design, we used to call this kerning. This deals with the lettering between your characters. And now some of the fonts, your lettering will be close like this, and see the K and S is too close, the R is touching the K. You usually don't want that. Same thing with the I and T, the ING there, the P and A. So you will want to, usually you want to kern the spacing where it looks a little bit nicer. Now I have not figured out how to do this yet, but sometimes it's usually just between two letters you need to kern, where others you don't, because you don't want to get too much of a gap. So that was the P and A. If I was to try to sit in and kern for the, let's take the keyframe off, kern this is trying to get that between the A and W, it starts getting too much between the P and A. So go back to this. Word spacing just basically adds spaces between your words. And you can see between digital and PAL. Line spacing, this just brings it where you can separate or bring closer. Now, unless you got a design where you got your G coming into your W like this, usually you don't want it touching, so you kind of want to give it some, oops, wrong one. Give it a little bit of spacing for like, at least that. For this one, it'd be at least 8. Even though 1 was the correct, but it might be depending upon what thing you do. Offset, well, that's just moving it between where from your away from your origin. So we don't really need to deal with that. Now you can come on down to your materials tab, and then just click new material, and you can add, like if I want to make it a mission, give it a color, and then let it glow, and we come over here to this, and so we can see it. Let's see if I darken it and glow it. Let's see, I want to go back to my principal BDS and just give it a color for right now. And for right now, that's all you can do is give it a color. You're going to have to convert it to a mesh. And the reason I will let you know this, you want to hit duplicate object first before you commit it to a mesh. That way, if you forgot something, oh, because if you're like me, spelling I did terrible on in school. And I still misspell words, and I will not find that misspelling no matter how many times I look over it till after I have published something. I can, so you may want to type some of this stuff out before you import it in, like type it out in Word or something, so you can make sure you got everything spelled correctly. But in case there's something you forgot, like a hyphen or anything, having it duplicated, so you can go back in, you can hit type, and then you can do something like and subscribe if you need to. Yeah, seamless plugin, I know. So we now got our text made. Let's go through on what we can do to clean this up a little bit and get it ready to use for other projects. Now, as I said before, normally you would want to just right click and hit duplicate object. That way if you want to come back in here and type, but since this ain't going to be a permanent, I'm not going to worry about that. Now I got this set over here to viewpoint shading. Of course, got X-ray on to kind of show you the complexity of stuff, but I can take it off and you see it. Now one of the things we can come over here is to our little wrench tool for modifiers. I'm going to add modifier, and I think it's under deform. Is it under deform or is it under generate? It's under generate. We want to do decimate and then planar. And as you can see, it cleans up a lot of that crazy geometry we had going, or that over complex geometry. Now you can actually use the modifier after you convert it to a mesh, but I'm just showing you before we convert it to a mesh that it can be used. So I'll just come up here to object. I think it's object. No, I got tab in. Don't get tab in. So let's see, what was it? Object, and I need to go to convert to mesh. There we go, convert down here. There he is, right here. We need to go to convert to mesh. So now when I tab in, I can't type nothing else, but I can see all the vertices and points. Well, let's go ahead and A for select, because I'm going to come up here to mesh, and I'm going to go down here to merge and go to merge by distance. And let me open this up. Can I move this over? Will this let me move you around? Nope, it's not going to let me move. Just make sure I lean back so I don't see it getting away. So you can change these settings. So like if I remove 0, it cleans up a little bit. Now, depending on how far I go, I just removed another over 3,000. But look what it did to my D. So I don't want to go that far. Let's do that. Now I can probably come in here and maybe change this to a 5. Try to clean up. So that removed another 2,400. So that kind of cleaned up some of the stuff there. That way we can get less we need to work with. Mainly it's going to probably be on all these curve shapes, because I don't want to worry about the straight lines that much. Hit A to select everything again. And let's see, what was the other thing? Come to mesh. Now we come down to delete. And let's see, what's it? Limited dissolve is what we want. And make sure I'm staying out the way. And so we can change this, and it's supposed to remove some stuff. So let's get you on up. Oh yeah, I can see it on some of the curves, like in the H and the O, how it's, because the S it's kind of dropped down. So you can kind of turn this up a little bit, go down, boy, it added a whole lot more. So you can use this to get rid of some extras, but it depends, you have to probably pay attention. Let me get this, we're going to do this straight on so we can kind of see what we're doing a bit better. You can see how it's moving some stuff around. So how much of the curve you want to keep versus you don't want to keep, it's going to be depending on this right here. But those would be three ways you can kind of clean up your text a little bit so it won't be so overly complicated with vertices. So we're going to take a look at a couple ways how you can emboss and engrave things using text in Blender. Now I've already got everything set up here. Now these are slightly different, and I'll go into what I did differently because I was going to show you some stuff. But we're going to go, this one's pretty well straightforward. I'm going to get my top view, probably size it a little bit deeper, depending on how deep or how raised up you want, how deep you want the emboss, or actually how raised up you want the emboss, how deep you want the engraving. Get my terminology correct here. So we'll come here, I'll click my cube, I'll add the modifier over here, make sure it's the little wrench tool. Get the modifier, go to generate, and I want Boolean. I covered pretty much most of this in my Boolean tutorial. I'll select the text. Now when I hide the text, you see it's got a engraving on the cube here. So I've now just engraved the cube with Digital Paul Workshop. Or if I want the union, it'll be create the emboss effect. And even the text is still here, so I can still kind of grab the text if I want to readjust and move it around some. So it's still there. Okay, so depending on whatever I need for the cube. Go back to the difference. Let's see if we can make this where we can see it a little bit better. Well, you can kind of see it a little bit better here, how the vertices are all going. Same thing if I want to go union. Now, curved surfaces are a bit trickier, and the only way I've found in Blender that it's worked for me is if I just come in, let's make sure, yeah, I'm in object mode, I hit Shift A and I want to come down a curve. In this case I want to do a circle, so that's what I'm doing. Do a circle and come here, and I want to actually grab and bring it down a little bit, because here I'm going to add a couple modifiers. This one I'm going to do generate and solidify, and I want to go up 0.25 on it, and then I want to add another one if I remember correctly. Generate, is it generate or is it deform? Deform curve, and you can either use your eyedropper to grab that curve, or in the case I can just click there and it's the only curve I have. And for some reason it throws it on this side, so you can see it's kind of backwards. And I've played around with this for some reason and I never could get it to turn on the actual side. So what I'll do here is I'll grab this and I'll do a rotate of 180, and even though my origin point's back here, that way it kind of does this a little bit. Now you can kind of play around with some of the stuff, like I could size this down a little bit, and of course you're going to probably have to move some objects to get into place. Let's see, I want to drop the, let's see, I don't want to drop that a little bit. Let me see if I can get this to get about where I want it. Now probably won't ever, actually I think that's pretty close to what I want this to be. So what I'm going to probably end up doing is applying this. Yep, there it goes. It fits right into where I want. So now I can actually size it a little bit easier. I'm going to go ahead and solidify that. Now I'm going to actually set my origin back to the center of my geometry. That way I can kind of get it to where I want. And you probably won't, before you set up your modifiers, you probably want to make sure it is where you want to be. But then just come back into the and generate Boolean, and then the difference. Okay, why did you do that to me? We'll go back to fast, and then there you go. Now I have an engraving on a cylinder where it says Digital Paul Workshop. Although I don't like the way that spacing of that I and A is on this. Notice I'm even doing my T. For some reason it didn't get my T in there correctly. If I did union, that's going to be fine. But for some reason it did not want to do my T. It's not doing my T correctly. And I don't know why it does that sometimes. I have no idea. But at least that gives you some idea on how you can emboss and engrave a cylinder object. And you might could do it with a curved surface if you use the curve to curve it one way and then use the curve tool again to curve it the other way. But of course you got the other curve. I have not played with trying to do just this Bezier. I just use the Bezier circle, so just the Bezier curve. But at least that gives you some hints on what you can do as far as embossing a text. And this should help you get started with using text in your 3D modeling projects here in Blender. And if you like my content, you can go to these websites right here to support me in different ways, as well as like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone you think might find it interesting. And if you're looking at wanting to get a little bit more creativity with decorating your text with different colors or even images, I recommend you check out my video, Blender Colorizing Objects with Different Techniques. Have a nice day.